but you shouldn't have to pay more taxes than you have to pay. And knowing or working with someone that knows the rules, or whether it be a CPA that knows the rules, and trying to minimize taxes where you can, is just being smart about it. And a lot of people aren't. They just kind of react instead of being proactive.
Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
I got a fun fact of the week here, Mark, and I don't know if I believe this or not, but I read earlier this week that female waitresses receive up to 26% more in tips from male customers when wearing red. Where in the world does that come from, and do you believe it?
I would question that. Is that from a male server that's wearing red also? I mean, are we comparing apples to apples?
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a silly fun fact.
I don't know where that research is from. I think you'll get more in tips if you provide good service.
Yeah, exactly.
That I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
It just seems lately with COVID and everything, service is hard to come by, especially good service.
But if you're wearing red, I mean, that's ridiculous.
I guess.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I'll pay more if I get good service. I don't necessarily look and see what they're wearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Or what color they're wearing, I guess.
Hey, well, let's talk about hidden expenses. And we have so many conversations about how folks have no idea what kind of fees are in their portfolio and that sort of thing. And they have no idea what these expenses are until they end up paying through the nose for them. Just because you can't plainly see all of the expenses that you're going to incur during the retirement planning process does not mean that they aren't there. First of all, there are mutual fund expenses. Explain that one if you would.
Well, and our industry does a really good job of hiding fees on purpose, and it's unfortunate, but that's kind of where things are. But there are a few of us who are leading the charge and trying to be more transparent as far as what's going on. Not everybody, but there's a few. But anyways, mutual funds, everybody knows that there's fees. People don't know what those fees are. You could look at the prospectus. They'll show some of the fees, but that's not all the fees because they don't know all the fees until the end of the year has happened. There's a statement of additional information, which you can request from each fund that you own, which will disclose the rest of those fees. But, on average, I would say they're probably around 1%. Some are less, some are more, depends on the type of fund. But it's hard to get an exact number as far as what you're paying on a mutual fund.
Okay, let's talk about variable annuity fees. I can't recall the number of times you and I have talked about high fees in variable annuities.
Yeah, and those are one of the products I really am not a fan of. I've actually never sold a variable annuity. They are one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive product to own. I think the fees on those all in are somewhere between 2.5% to 4% per year, which can be hidden very well if the market's going up. On a down year, though, it just adds on top of that because you do have mutual fund expenses, which we just discussed, are kind of hidden and not sure. And then you have a layer of insurance wrapped around it. The only people I think that benefit from variable annuities, and this is my opinion, is the person selling them. They typically make more money on them than a lot of investors do versus the alternative, which would just be buy those same funds or buy a portfolio. I'm not a fan of variable annuities whatsoever, and I don't see as many of them as we used to, but people still sell them because advisors make more money on those if they were to sell you that versus just selling you the mutual funds.
Mm-hmm. You're listening to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman, and we're talking about hidden expenses. And one thing that amazes me, a lot of folks out there, when they're thinking about retirement and what they're going to do for retirement and how they're going to fund their lifestyles, they don't even consider inflation. And even worse than that is a lot of financial advisors out there, so-called financial advisors, don't take inflation into account. And that's just kind of ridiculous if you ask me.
Well, I agree with you, but the buzzword this year is one of them has been inflation for sure. We typically use around a 3% inflation rate, which I know is extremely low compared to what real inflation is right now. I don't know if that number is 7.5, which is what some are saying.
Yeah.
If you look at fuel or gas, that's over 50%. So it just depends. We know inflation's here. Hopefully it's not here to stay. I don't know if it's going away anytime soon, but we have to get a handle on inflation, which right now, unfortunately, we don't have. But you have to look at what your cost, your purchasing power, happening to your purchasing power. And this is the problem with sitting too much in cash. A lot of people are worried about the market, so they're sitting in their investments in cash, which we know is guaranteed not to keep pace with inflation. If you buy a CD, a money market, a bond, that's not going to keep pace with inflation, with where inflation is right now either. So one of the things is that's why a lot of people are moving to equities, because that's the only way you have a chance to keep pace with inflation. But you have to have the right equities and know, that sort of thing as far as having a diversified portfolio, which we can help you with. But that's one of the challenges is inflation right now.
It's a real mistake, though, if you don't consider it, if you just ignore it, because, we know that inflation is happening and will be happening in the future. You're listening to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman. You're a certified financial planner professional at Silverman and Associates, and we're talking about hidden expenses. Have been so many conversations about this next one here, and that is tax increases. We know that taxes are going to be higher in the future. Don't know exactly when that might happen, but that's an important consideration when it comes to financial planning.
It really is. And I mean, taxes have to increase. This debt's not going to pay itself off, especially with all the money that we've been giving out over the last couple of years in stimulus money and whatever. So tax increases are going to have to make its way. I don't care who you are, but taxes are going to increase. And so it's understanding what those are and trying to be smart about that, knowing that you're going to have to pay taxes, but you shouldn't have to pay more taxes than you have to pay. And knowing or working with someone that knows the rules, or whether it be a CPA that knows the rules, and trying to minimize taxes where you can, is just being smart about it. And a lot of people aren't. They just kind of react instead of being proactive.
Yeah, a lot of people, considered the fact that, that they have been told over the years that their expenses are going to be lower when they get to retirement age and when they actually retire than they were when they were, younger and in the workplace. And that's not necessarily true, because especially in the early years of retirement, you may be traveling a lot or doing some special leisure activities, and all those things take money.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. I know that a lot of people go into it thinking that maybe they're only going to spend 70 to 80% of their working income in retirement. I'm here to tell you, and I work with people who are still working, retired, and everywhere in between. People spend about the same in retirement as they spend in their working years.
Yeah.
Where I think the 70 to 80% rule that has been out there comes in is if you have a mortgage and that mortgage is paid off, maybe there's your, 20, 30% that you were spending on your mortgage that you don't have anymore, but you still have property taxes, insurance, and upkeep and those sorts of things. But, you are going to spend probably roughly, you have it's called lifestyle creep, or whatever you want to call it, lifestyle inflation, but you have a certain lifestyle that you've made, that you've adapted to, and you want to keep up that lifestyle. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that, but you need to know that you're going to probably spend about the same in retirement that you're spending in your working years, because the other thing is you're going to have more time now. If you're not working, you have the time, and most things unfortunately cost money. And so, having to plan for that to make sure that you're able to retire and do all the things you want to do in retirement versus just retiring and, sitting on the couch and doing nothing. That's not a good plan.
Well, if you're going to sit on the couch and do nothing all day and maybe eat lunch out of a tuna fish can, maybe your expenses will be lower in retirement. But if you actually are going to go see members of your family or grandchildren, or travel anywhere at all, or buy holiday gifts, that sort of thing, all that adds up, and the money's got to come from somewhere. If you'd like to have a conversation with Mark Silverman about your situation, get his planning process, the True Wealth Financial Life Planning Process. It all starts with a complimentary call. And to make that happen, I'm going to give out the number in just a second here. But, Mark, I know you always love having a conversation with new people.
I do. And this, I try to help everybody that I can. And so this is you're not committed to anything. There's no obligation. You're going to call or text, and you'll give out the number here in a minute. And we'll certainly reach back out to you. And Christine, who works with me, will get you on my calendar for a 15 to 20-minute phone call where I'm going to answer any questions that you may have. Try to help you the best that I can. If we're a good fit, we'll talk about next steps and that sort of thing, but nothing happens until you reach out.
You've been listening to the Saving with Silverman podcast. If you have any questions at all about your financial situation, please give Mark Silverman a call. Again, his number is 520-333-7601, or go online to savingwithsilverman.com. For Mark Silverman, I'm Ron Stutz. We'll see you next time on the Saving with Silverman podcast.
The Saving with Silverman podcast is brought to you by Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, based in Tucson, Arizona. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show on your favorite app today and never miss an episode. Just search for Saving with Silverman to find us, or visit savingwithsilverman.com to listen to past episodes, to contact Mark, and to learn more about how to make smarter decisions with your money.
Did you know that Mark Silverman also has a radio show? Tune in to Saving with Silverman Saturdays and Sundays at 3 p.m. on AM 790 KNST.
All matters discussed on this show are for informational purposes only. Opinions expressed are solely those of Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, and staff. All topics covered are believed to be from reliable sources. However, Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC makes no representation as to its accuracy or completeness. This show shall in no way be construed as a solicitation to sell securities or investment advisory services to residents of any state other than Arizona or where otherwise permitted. Topics should be discussed with your individual advisor prior to implementation. Fee-based financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Arizona. Insurance products and services are offered through Silverman & Associates, an affiliated company.